So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS, and then they shoot you with it.
Oh, Eazy AIDS.
How would he do that?
Through an intravenous needle.
And Eazy would never tell anybody that.
No, maybe Eazy didn't even know.
Nah, I think if somebody poke you with one of them goddamn needles, you know. You know.
Fully loaded.
Suge Knight's name still sends a chill through hip-hop. Whether you're a die-hard rap fan or just someone who heard rumors about the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, chances are you've come across the stories. The fear, the intimidation, and the dark theories swirling around Death Row Records' most notorious figure. But among all the controversies connected to Suge, one stands out as particularly strange and unsettling: the belief that he somehow caused Eazy-E's sudden demise.
You can look at me and look at Eazy and say, you know, what do I need a bat, to force him to do a few things? I mean, if I stood up tall and that Eric if he walked between my legs, excuse my French, people probably would think he was my penis.
Eazy-E was the godfather of gangster rap, the man who co-founded NWA and paved the way for countless artists in the West Coast scene. His passing in 1995 sent shockwaves through the industry. At the time, most took it at face value. Eazy-E died from complications related to AIDS, which he publicly announced shortly before he passed. Yet as the years rolled on, more voices questioned the official story. How could one of rap's most prominent figures fall ill and disappear so quickly without a single person close to him noticing anything was wrong? This is where Suge Knight's shadow looms large. A brief comment on late-night television turned decades of speculation into a full-blown conspiracy theory. Was Eazy-E truly struck down by disease, or did Suge have him taken out? Did he use an insidious method that left no bullet casings, no obvious crime scene, and no immediate evidence? The rumors sound like something ripped straight from a gangster movie. But in the rap world, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
And I got a call from the doctor. Well, really, I got a call from him, but then he was on the phone crying and couldn't talk. And then the doctor got on the phone, asked me, was I sitting down? And then he told me, we got the test results back, and the test results came back positive.
This story isn't just about two men on opposite sides of a record deal, though. It's also about an entire era of hip-hop that thrived on power moves, clandestine deals, and an undercurrent of fear. It's about how one powerful individual could become a boogeyman figure, with enough sway to be linked, fairly or unfairly, to multiple unsolved tragedies in the music scene. As we dive deeper, keep in mind that these rumors persist for a reason. There are enough suspicious details, contradictory testimonies, and lingering questions to fill more than a few episodes of any true crime show. Still, facts can be elusive, and official documents only tell part of the story. So what really happened to Eazy-E? Did Suge Knight take the feud beyond business, or is this just the rap world's biggest ghost story? By the end of this, you might have more questions than answers, but that doesn't mean the ride won't reveal some shocking secrets about life at the top of 1990. Suge Knight became rap's most feared CEO. He was Marion Hugh Knight Jr., an imposing figure who used his size and determination to chase a future in football. He played at UNLV, spent a bit of time with the LA Rams, and then pivoted. His goals shifted from the gridiron to the entertainment business. Nobody could have guessed how quickly he would transform from a promising athlete into a force who would allegedly use intimidation to shape an entire music empire. Suge stepped into the music scene by working as a bodyguard for celebrities, which allowed him to forge strong connections. These small but crucial steps gave him a direct line to influential artists. He had a knack for negotiation, but it was often negotiation backed by veiled, and sometimes not so veiled, threats. Soon, he began representing up-and-coming rappers, and his real climb began when he stumbled onto Dr. Dre's dispute with Ruthless Records.
Now this jockeys are playing me in rotation, hitting #1.
By the time Death Row Records officially launched in 1991, Suge had Dr. Dre as his star producer and Snoop Dogg as the label's rising talent. Their first album, Dre's The Chronic, exploded onto the charts and redefined West Coast hip-hop. Suddenly, Death Row wasn't just a label, it was a cultural phenomenon. From the beats to the style, Suge oversaw an era that changed rap music forever. Artists under his umbrella carried themselves with an edge that matched the dark mystique of the label's name. And Suge was more than happy to let rumors of his brutality grow, as long as it helped keep everyone in line. Yet, behind the platinum plaques and chart success, there were countless whispers of violence. Some employees described Death Row's offices as downright hostile. Others hinted that Suge's business negotiations often happened behind closed doors, and the threat of physical harm wasn't off the table. Any whiff of disloyalty could be met with terrifying consequences. If employees or artists weren't on board, they might just disappear from the roster or the building overnight. The public saw just enough to suspect that Suge was a puppet master, pulling strings from the shadows. People inside the industry feared him. Journalists painted him as the boogeyman of hip-hop. And yet Death Row soared, fueled by a legendary roster that included Dre, Snoop, and later Tupac. Meanwhile, Eazy-E, one of the founding fathers of the West Coast scene, seemed like an old rival standing on the other side of a deep canyon. Suge had already proven that if you crossed him, you paid a heavy price. But was he capable of something even more sinister?
You battle with your mind. I mean, one of the things that, when I got involved in the music business, Doc, the GLC, was a friend of mine.
Right.
The seeds of that possibility had already been planted thanks to the way he got Dre out of Ruthless. The tale of Suge showing up to a studio with pipes and a piece of paper bearing someone's mother's address remains one of the most infamous stories in hip-hop lore. From that moment on, Eazy-E's world collided with Suge's unstoppable ascent in a way that would leave a permanent mark on rap history. But to understand how we got to the troubling conspiracy about Eazy-E's final days, we need to look at who Eazy was and how much he'd done for hip-hop by the time he left us. Eric Lynn Wright, better known as Eazy-E, wasn't just some rapper who got lucky. He was a West Coast visionary. Born and raised in Compton, he poured his street smarts into the music he made and the artists he mentored. It all started when he co-founded NWA alongside Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, MC Ren, and DJ Yella. Together, they changed hip-hop forever with raw depictions of the streets. Eazy-E's unique delivery and gritty persona helped transform gangsta rap from an underground movement into a mainstream force. After NWA's breakup, he funneled his energy into Ruthless Records, proving he had the hustle to survive in the music business even when parted from some of his original partners. Under his guidance, acts like Bone Thugs and Harmony emerged, quickly becoming influential in their own right. Despite losing Dr. Dre to what would soon become Death Row Records, Eazy kept forging ahead. He recorded his own material, produced other artists, and maintained a presence in the industry that demanded respect.
Guys called Thugs and Harmony.
Do you find that Eazy's a real good businessman?
Oh yeah,
Very good.
yeah,
He's the best businessman we ever dealt with.
We don't kick it with no fake, bro.
But behind the scenes, tension was brewing. Rumors circulated about Eazy-E's finances and personal life. The man had fathered many children with different mothers, yet no one ever accused him of letting that distract him from his main obsession, building a hip-hop empire. His street cred was undeniable. He had the charisma and smarts to outmaneuver enemies and sign serious talent. Even as Dr. Dre and Snoop dropped tracks mocking him, Eazy-E refused to bow down. He countered with savage disses of his own, letting the world know he wasn't intimidated by Suge or anyone else. Then, in 1995, everything changed. Eazy checked into the hospital complaining of what seemed like a bad cough. No one expected how rapidly the situation would escalate. Within weeks, he faced the cameras with a statement that stunned fans. He had AIDS. It was a confession that left little hope. Not long after, on March 26, 1995, he was gone. The godfather of gangster rap departed this world at the shockingly young age of 30. Everyone knew how dangerous AIDS was in the 1980s and 1990s, but those close to Eazy struggled to accept how quickly it took him down. Friends like Bone Thugs and Harmony saw him up close and claimed he showed no severe signs of ill health. They later described how he was up, walking around, and in reasonably good spirits. One day he was with them talking about plans for the future. The next, he was gone. For a man who had so many partners over the years, it also seemed peculiar that no one else reported contracting HIV from him. Family members eventually began talking about the suspicious nature of it all.
Actually, a little while after that, like a few months after that, he got sick. All of a sudden, like bam, out the blue.
Real sudden.
To complicate matters, various sources surfaced with theories about a setup. Some claimed Eazy-E may have been injected with something harmful. Others quietly suspected that certain people in his orbit had plenty of motivation to remove him from the picture. And as time went on, more and more fingers started pointing at Suge Knight. After all, Eazy-E stood in Suge's way in the early days by holding Dr. Dre's contract. Was that enough for Suge to do something drastic? Or is it all just rumor and speculation spurred by a single interview that Suge gave on national television? When Dr. Dre felt he wasn't receiving fair compensation from Ruthless Records, he sought a way out. Enter Suge Knight, who allegedly showed up at a recording studio, confronted Eazy-E, and demanded the release of Dr. Dre and the Doc from their contracts. According to some accounts, he didn't come alone. He brought muscle. Bats and pipes were rumored to be involved, and so was a document listing the address of Eazy-E's mother. The message was clear. This wasn't a polite request. Eazy initially refused. He was no pushover and took pride in Ruthless Records. But when the family got dragged into the crossfire, the stakes rose. Eventually, he signed the documents, ending the standoff. Dr. Dre was free to go, and soon Death Row Records was born. Many see that moment as the turning point. It wasn't just business. It felt personal, like a line had been crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. But Eazy-E didn't sink into obscurity after losing Dre. He fought back with music. On his track Real___G's, he and his collaborators took sharp aim at Dr. Dre and Snoop. He ridiculed Dre's street credibility and mocked the idea that he was calling the shots at Death Row, implying Dre himself was being controlled by Suge Knight. Lyrics like, "I heard you getting treated like boot camp," cut deep, suggesting Dre was under constant surveillance by Suge. The track was heated, direct, and unapologetic, typical of Eazy-E's approach.
Eazy is this big-time gangster, right? You know, that's the man. How am I going to be able to force him into doing anything?
Suge's reputation for retaliation was no secret. If you said the wrong thing or tried to break free from Death Row, you could find yourself in serious trouble. Rumors of orchestrated beatdowns inside the label's office circulated endlessly. Tales ranged from forced humiliations to life-threatening confrontations. In that climate, it wasn't hard for fans to imagine that Suge might have held a deep grudge against Eazy-E. After all, if Eazy had truly considered striking back at Suge in the early days, who was to say Suge hadn't bided his time and plotted a more devious response? Adding fuel to the fire was the widespread view that Suge didn't do anything halfway. If he needed to handle a problem, he did it in the most intimidating way possible. That's what made the theory of him orchestrating Eazy-E's death chilling, yet oddly plausible for some. The question was, if Suge really wanted to get rid of Eazy, would he do it in a manner as roundabout as injecting him with a virus? Or would he do it in a much more direct, brutal way consistent with his known style? Yet the rumor persisted. And ironically, it wasn't some hidden confession or secret leak that got people talking in earnest. It was Suge himself, on national television, dropping a bombshell statement that would echo through rap conspiracy circles for years. In 2003, Suge Knight made an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live. By that time, he was already infamous. Host Jimmy Kimmel decided to wear a bulletproof vest as a gag, poking fun at Suge's violent reputation. Anyone tuning in expected some provocative conversation, perhaps some banter about rap's golden era, or a few jokes about Suge's well-known controversies. What they didn't expect was a bizarre reference to harming someone using an indirect but lethal method.
So they got this new thing out there. People sell them all the time. They got this stuff they get blood from somebody with AIDS. Yeah. And then they shoot you with it. Oh.
During the interview, Suge casually mentioned a new kind of attack that didn't require bullets. He talked about getting infected blood from someone with AIDS and then using it to inject a target. This, he suggested, was a more sophisticated way of taking someone out. Jimmy Kimmel laughed it off, somewhat nervously, but the impact was immediate. Viewers around the country perked up. Why in the world would Suge Knight bring up that kind of scenario so casually on live television? Almost at once, a wave of speculation erupted. People replayed the clip, dissected every word and drew connections to Eazy-E's passing. Eazy-E had died from complications linked to AIDS, and here was Suge Knight, years later, joking or half-joking about the same virus as a means of harm. Critics called it a confession, while others said it was just Suge being Suge, provocative, dark, and reckless in what he chose to say. Nonetheless, the interview lit the spark that fueled 1,000 conspiracy theories. Suge never clarified the statement. He didn't follow up with any disclaimer that it was just a sick joke. He left the comment hanging in the air, effectively feeding a monster of speculation. Perhaps it was bravado, a twisted sense of humor, or an offhand remark meant to shock. But the result was the same. Overnight, the narrative that Suge Knight might have secretly arranged Eazy-E's death via a tainted needle went from a fringe idea whispered by a few to a widespread rumor repeated on message boards, documentaries, and barbershop debates.
I heard that virus can live in your body for years and before it even catch up to you and all that, but that was December. January, hospital. February, full blown. March, he was gone. Like, it never did add up to me.
Many questioned why he would let such a thing slip. Had he grown so comfortable in his infamy that he felt untouchable? Was it a way to remind people he was still the scariest figure in rap, even after Death Row lost its original luster? Or was there something more genuine underneath the bravado? The timing, nearly a decade after Eazy-E's death, was odd. If Suge wanted to brag or reveal something, why wait so long? Some believed it was a veiled threat to others who might cross him. It served as a kind of calling card. Mess with me, and there are worse things than bullets. The Kimmel interview may have been short, but its effect was enormous. Suddenly, the narrative around Eazy-E's death had a new piece of evidence, at least in the eyes of believers. People re-examined every detail, from Eazy-E's hospital stay to the absence of infections among his many partners. And whenever the question came up, could Suge have murdered Eazy-E? Someone inevitably pointed to that Jimmy Kimmel appearance as the smoking gun. One of the elements that kept this conspiracy alive was the peculiar detail that none of Eazy-E's romantic partners, nor his children, reportedly tested positive for HIV. Eazy-E was known to have multiple relationships and was said to have fathered 11 children with 8 different women. In an era where knowledge about HIV and AIDS was growing but still clouded by stigma, it appeared especially strange that no one else close to him was affected. Statistically, it seemed too improbable. Fans and friends alike asked, how did the virus target him so aggressively, yet leave everyone else unscathed? Adding to the confusion were statements from those who saw Eazy-E in his final days. Members of Bone Thugs and Harmony claimed he didn't appear to be in dire condition. Even his close associates noted he wasn't exhibiting the typical progression or outward signs of advanced illness. A few days after checking into the hospital with a cough, he was gone. It felt abrupt. It felt unnatural. And in the absence of a clear explanation, rumors of foul play flourished. Jerry Heller, the former manager of NWA and Ruthless Records, voiced his own suspicions. He mentioned how during that same period, Magic Johnson had also publicly announced he was HIV positive. Yet Johnson received medical help that extended his life and allowed him to manage the condition. Couldn't the same have been done for Eazy-E, given his resources? Or was Johnson's case simply different, with Eazy-E discovering his diagnosis too late? Heller leaned toward the idea that something else had gone on. He never laid out a bulletproof argument, but his status as someone deeply intertwined with Eazy's career lent weight to his concerns. Meanwhile, Eazy-E's son, known as Young Eazy, posted about the Jimmy Kimmel clip stating that he had long believed his father was murdered. He insisted that the details never added up. The suddenness, the lack of symptoms, everything pointed to a scenario more malicious than random illness. Young Eazy seemed convinced Suge Knight's words on Kimmel were a tacit admission. In contrast, Eazy-E's daughter Ebe took a different path. She produced a documentary about her father's passing and reached out to multiple sources, including medical professionals. In her research, a doctor named Wilbert Jordan came forward, claiming Eazy had infected 2 of his female patients with HIV. That account introduced another possibility. Maybe Eazy-E had indeed been sick for a while, didn't know it, and was unfortunately at a stage where treatment couldn't help. Eazy ultimately concluded that Suge Knight didn't kill her father, but she maintained that aspects of his demise still felt suspicious, perhaps related to opportunistic behavior by people around Eazy or misdiagnoses in the early stages. Her mother, Tracy Jernigan, also expressed skepticism about the official story. She questioned whether Eazy-E could have advanced to an AIDS diagnosis so quickly and doubted the straightforward explanation of he tested positive, then died. This wasn't someone who had run-ins with repeated illnesses or hospital stays. He was, by most accounts, stable and upbeat, until he abruptly wasn't. By now, so many angles exist that it's hard to keep track. There's the official narrative. Eazy-E contracted HIV, didn't discover it soon enough, and succumbed to complications. Then there's the conspiracy angle. Suge Knight orchestrated a cunning plot to inject Eazy-E with infected blood, aided by unsuspecting medical personnel or coerced individuals. And overshadowing it all is the chilling remark from the Kimmel interview that keeps fueling imaginations. Even if you set aside Eazy-E's story, Suge Knight's track record is enough to make anyone believe he could be involved in something sinister. The man was famously associated with the downfall of countless individuals in the music scene. Stories of him forcing people to drink humiliating substances, terrorizing employees, and conducting violent retributions are legendary. And that's just scratching the surface of his reputation. Some people also tie him to Tupac Shakur's death in 1996. Tupac was the crown jewel of Death Row Records, but rumors suggested he wanted out. He was unhappy with certain contract terms and financial arrangements. According to the most extreme theories, Suge couldn't bear the idea of losing Tupac's star power and letting another label profit from his talents. So he allegedly set up an ambush in Las Vegas that ended Tupac's life. While there's no concrete proof to officially indict Suge for Tupac's death, it hasn't stopped fans and insiders from whispering about his possible role. Then there's the notion that he had a hand in Biggie's death, another rumor swirling in the rap underworld. Some believe Biggie was taken out as a distraction to shift blame away from whatever might have really happened to Tupac. Again, no solid evidence has ever landed on the table, yet the rumors persist. Suge remains the central figure in these dark allegations because his reputation for enforcing control was larger than life. If you cross Suge Knight, many said, you better watch your back. Eventually, the law caught up to him for something entirely separate. In 2015, Suge Knight ran over two men during an argument on the set of the Straight Outta Compton film. One individual died from injuries. Suge initially claimed he was acting in self-defense, but the incident only cemented the idea that he was a ticking time bomb. Video footage showed the brutality of the event, and it left little doubt that he was still, even decades later, prone to acts of extreme violence. He ended up receiving a 28-year prison sentence, effectively ending his reign in the music industry. It's this very legacy that makes the Eazy-E theory sound feasible to some. If Suge was bold enough to allegedly strong-arm Eazy-E into signing away Dr. Dre, if he was rumored to have had a hand in Tupac's or Biggie's demise, and if he showed no hesitation in using violence at any opportunity, why wouldn't he use a more sophisticated approach to eliminate a rival he despised? Others argue that Suge would have simply used a gun or arranged a random altercation. They believe an injection scheme is too elaborate and indirect for a man who displayed such raw brutality. Whichever side you land on, Suge Knight's influence on hip-hop was immense. He was part of an era that some call the golden age of gangster rap, while others see it as a time of fear-driven business practices. His downfall signaled a shift, a moment when the once untouchable mogul found himself behind bars, with only echoes of his former power still haunting the corridors of hip-hop history. So, does real evidence point to Suge Knight orchestrating Eazy-E's death? That depends on who you ask and what you consider evidence. On one side, you have powerful anecdotes. There's the suspicious speed of Eazy-E's decline, the lack of infection in his partners, and Suge Knight's eerie statement on Jimmy Kimmel Live. You also have testimonies from people like Jerry Heller and Young Eazy, both of whom firmly suspect foul play. On the other hand, many argue there's a logical, straightforward explanation. The early to mid-1990s were still a time when HIV testing, treatment, and awareness were evolving. Eazy-E may not have known he was positive until it was too late, making his rapid decline somewhat more plausible. The virus can remain dormant for years, and individuals can appear healthy until they reach a critical stage. By then, a combination of opportunistic infections and the body's weakened immune system can lead to a swift end. There's also the testimony of Dr. Wilbert Jordan, who claimed Eazy-E had infected at least 2 women. If true, it undercuts the argument that nobody else contracted HIV from him. But no public records have confirmed Jordan's story, and those 2 women have never stepped forward publicly. Eazy-E's daughter, Ebi, trusts Jordan enough to consider his statements credible. She has also emphasized that her father was in the dark about his diagnosis until it was far too late. Some fans point to the possibility of a tampered medical procedure. Stories have circulated that Eazy-E visited a hospital or clinic after being injured on an ATV, and there he may have received a lethal injection. Yet no direct evidence has emerged to link his injury or his subsequent healthcare visits to anyone associated with Suge Knight. The scenario remains an anecdote repeated by figures like the rapper Frost, who implied that a devilish figure in West Coast rap might have orchestrated something behind the scenes. Skeptics argue that if Suge truly wanted Eazy-E dead, he would have orchestrated a drive-by or a beating. They point out that Suge's known approach to problems was often brute force, not stealth. Why develop such a convoluted plan? On the other side, believers respond that the cunning nature of such a plan might have been exactly the point. An injection would leave no traceable bullets, no shell casings, and could be dismissed as a tragic health issue rather than a homicide. It was the perfect crime if executed correctly. When it comes to the question of motive, one could argue it existed. Eazy-E refused to buckle under threats until his mother's safety was used as leverage. He also never stopped antagonizing Dr. Dre, Suge Knight, and death row artists on wax. Maybe that grudge festered. Or maybe Suge couldn't care less once Dre was released. After all, Eazy-E and Ruthless Records continued to run in parallel to Death Row. They might not have been best friends, but neither was Eazy-E dethroning Death Row's commercial success. Ultimately, every piece of evidence can be countered by a plausible explanation. No one has come forward with a definitive witness account. Police have never treated Eazy-E's death as a homicide, and no lawsuit has been filed against Suge Knight over it. This stalemate has persisted, fueling the conspiracy theories year after year. It's a riddle with no solution, at least for the time being. So did Suge Knight kill Eazy-E? After examining the rumors, testimonies, and inconsistencies, the answer remains entangled in mystery. On one side, the official record states that Eazy-E died of complications from AIDS, a virus he likely discovered too late to treat effectively. On the other side, there's a mountain of speculation fueled by Suge's reputation, personal vendettas, and that chilling suggestion he made on national television about injecting someone with tainted blood. It's tempting to jump to one conclusion or another. Rap's golden era was filled with violent power struggles, secret deals, and massive egos clashing over money and respect. Suge Knight was at the center of many controversies, making him an easy target for suspicion. Eazy-E's rapid decline, the conflicting accounts from those close to him, and the suspicious coincidences open the door to theories beyond mere illness. Yet for many, the simplest explanation, that Eazy-E unknowingly carried a disease and succumbed to it, rings true enough to dismiss the more sensational theories. In the end, maybe the core lesson lies in how quickly a life can change and how easily speculation can overshadow fact. Eazy-E's legacy deserves to be remembered for his contributions to gangster rap, his role in forming NWA, and the artists he elevated under Ruthless Records. Suge Knight's name will forever be associated with Death Row's meteoric rise and violent downfall, whether or not he played any role in Eazy-E's final chapter. No matter where you stand on the conspiracy spectrum, it's clear that Eazy-E's death still haunts the hip-hop community. The abruptness, the confusion, and the eerie questions lingering in the background haven't faded, even after all these years. And while Suge Knight sits in prison on unrelated charges, the story of Eazy-E's death continues to echo, challenging us to separate legend from reality. Was Eazy-E the victim of a hidden plot by a powerful rival, or did fate deal him a cruel hand at the worst possible time? Only a select few know the complete truth, and they haven't spoken in a way that settles the debate once and for all. Until that day comes, if it ever does, fans and curious onlookers can only re-examine the facts, compare stories, and wonder about what truly happened. Perhaps that lingering mystery is exactly what keeps Eazy-E's name alive in the annals of hip-hop, a final, haunting question mark after a life spent pushing boundaries.